I caught up earlier today with Sean Spicer, former press secretary to Donald Trump in his first presidency, to discuss what was the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. Now, that was prior to this late ceasefire breach. Joining me now is former White House press secretary Sean Spicer. Now, Sean, we've had a hell of a night. What do you make of the attack first up on your US base in Qatar and President Trump's description of it being weak?
I think it was a show. Iran needed to do something. But number one, they gave us a heads up. Number two, there's minimal damage according to the reports that we're aware of, and no human casualty or injury, which is huge, right? That basically shows that Iran needed to save a little bit of face with their own people. But at the end of the day, this shows that the might and the force that the U.S. exhibited Saturday evening was enough to make them reconsider how long they wanted to protract this engagement. To me, look, I think I've been studying this stuff and dealing with it for almost 3 decades. This, to me, is a military effort that will go down in history as one of the best executed, most comprehensive joint actions that the U.S. military has ever performed. The level of precision, engagement, deception, coordination, jointness between the Navy and the Air Force is something that history books will record.
I was going to get to that because you and I, we're old enough to have lived through this many times, and you can only hold your breath now and go, okay, have we finally got to that point where we can see peace in the Middle East? My only caution about that is you're dealing here with a regime that, was happy to fund October 7 in the hands of Hamas. They gave weapons to Hezbollah. They armed the Houthis. Can you really trust and believe that Iran is going to go, righto, that's it, peace in our time?
No, I think you're asking the absolute right question. Look, I don't trust them as far as I can throw them, and that's not very far. What I do know is they were backed into a corner. President Trump made it very clear that they had an option and an opportunity for peace. They chose not to take it. But here's what I do know, that the message that Iran got, and frankly the entire world, is that when Donald Trump has to, while it may not be his first option, he will always defend America's interests decisively and very spectacularly, as was seen on Saturday night. And so while I don't necessarily trust him, I think that the message that they got was, if you screw with us again, if you try to enrich uranium again, we will take you out and we will go further. So again, I think that the takeaway from Saturday night isn't about whether or not we can trust them or whether we'll ever be friends with them, but it's a question of, did we scare them enough to realize that one more misstep and it's not going to end well?
Yeah, it's really interesting, Sean. I heard a former senior military official earlier saying, what we've said to Iran and the world is, we can bomb your country and you won't even know we're coming. You won't even know
That's right.
in advance that something's going to happen. We can do it and you have no clue.
Right. And that's the key, is that they understand that level of precision, coordination, surprise, deception that was exhibited the other night is just a taste of what could come their way. And I think that any leader, regardless of whether it's the Ayatollah or some student council president, recognizes the moment that you're in, whether or not you've got the power or not. They recognize that this wasn't an opportunity for them that they wanted to give up. It would not have ended well for them had this gone on further. So I think President Trump deserves a lot of credit. And I know, I don't know how close you guys followed it in Australia or not, but this was a political embarrassment for the Democrats in this country. From Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to Bernie Sanders to the leader of the House Democrats, Hakeem Jeffries, they literally beclowned themselves this weekend trying to appease the far left progressive base. And 48 hours left are standing there looking like complete national embarrassments for how they handled the situation.
Yeah, they ran out on Saturday morning Australian time and started talking about impeachment, for God's sake.
Yeah. I mean, look, I get that that's reflexively what they think they should do, and maybe it appeases the very far extreme left of the party that's the base of who they are today. But at the end of the day, number one, it was politically stupid. It just showed how stupidly reflexive they are as opposed to thinking it through. And number two is that I think for the vast majority of Americans, it showed how unpatriotic they were. Bernie Sanders, time and time again, chooses to come down on the side of terrorists, illegal criminals, everybody but hardworking Americans. And I think that it was exposed even further this weekend who stands with the American people and who stands with the enemy.
Let's take it back to Operation Midnight Hammer. Now, you've been in that operations room. It's the one where the world saw, Osama bin Laden taken out. We saw President Trump sitting there watching as the B-2s hit Fort Dow. That must be an incredible room to ever be in, watching a military operation as it unfolds.
Yeah, there's the room itself. I've been in the Situation Room in the White House, and I've also been in what we call a makeshift SCIF, a secure compartmentalized information, facility here. When I was with President Trump and we dropped bombs in Syria during his first term, we were in a makeshift SCIF where we watched the bombs get dropped and the battle damage assessment come in. It's not just the room that's kind of an awesome thing to be part of historically, but sitting there with the President of the United States and other key national security leaders when it happens, watching the precision and expertise and professionalism of the United States military at work is just something that you can never, ever see in a movie or read in a book. Being there firsthand and watching it happen is just an awesome, awesome experience.
Sean, talk to me about Israel. I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu, he's got his own regional ambitions. He wants regime change in Iran. We're told, though, that a ceasefire kicked in this afternoon Australian time between Israel and Iran. Does Donald Trump have Netanyahu under control?
Absolutely. Look, I think Netanyahu, if left to his own accord, would want to continue prosecuting the case against Iran. I don't think that's any secret. He definitely would want regime change. But President Trump's made it very clear what the U.S. objectives and national interests are, which is that Iran cannot have nuclear capabilities. He wasn't concerned about regime change. And so that's where I think Israel and the United States somewhat diverged. And Donald Trump, I think, has made it very clear to Prime Minister Netanyahu that I'll go as far as I can with you, but then there's a point at which I'm going to stop because it's not necessarily in the U.S.'s national interest. There's enough that Israel is tethered to the United States, whether it's security or financially, that I think Prime Minister Netanyahu knows where that red line is that he needs to stop.
Just finally, how enhanced is Donald Trump's reputation globally after what happened at the weekend?
Look, the media and the left in America, I don't know how much you guys got it down under, but had come up with this silly phrase called taco. Trump always chickens out, and they were trying to make it seem like he never follows through. Donald Trump exhibited decisive judgment this weekend. And I don't think that anybody, whether it's China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, will ever question his resolve again. He showed that during his first term, as I mentioned, with Syria, and he showed it again this weekend. Look, Donald Trump is a man of peace. He doesn't like watching death and destruction happen. But when push comes to shove, he will always protect the American people and our national interests. And the world got to see that on display this weekend.
Sean Spicer, always great to catch up. Thank you, my friend.
You bet, sir.